My wife, 32-year-old female, and I, 32-year-old male, had some compromises to make regarding extracurricular activities. My wife was involved in many activities while growing up. She hardly ever had free time, and her parents strongly opposed it for children. She participated in gymnastics, softball, basketball, soccer, dance, and music. On the other hand, my family had a more relaxed approach, which suited me. I occasionally swam and did art. However, none of it was highly competitive or serious. My wife engaged in many competitive activities and always pursued a professional career. When discussing having children, she wanted to raise them in the same manner. I disagreed with her on that. So we agreed that we wouldn't impose anything on them, we wouldn't overwhelm them. At most, 2 or 3 activities at a time, and we wouldn't force them to join highly competitive sports teams if they didn't want to. However, if they chose to, we wouldn't stop them either. We have 4 boys. Our older 2 are very passionate about sports and take them seriously. They want to play on competitive teams. However, our younger boys are the opposite and don't enjoy team sports. One prefers swimming, and the other prefers rock climbing. But neither of them wants to pursue these activities seriously. My wife wanted them to follow in their older brother's footsteps and at least join the serious football team that their brothers were part of and have progressed since then. I disagreed and reminded her of our previous agreement. She didn't agree with me and insisted that they should be part of teams and take sports more seriously. My wife involved her parents in this matter, and all 3 of them tried to explain why I was wrong. My in-laws claimed that children with free time will turn into delinquents and mentioned that I was an exception. They also said that the younger boys won't be tough enough for high school and beyond if they don't learn something more solid in terms of sports. I asked them how any of this was related to being tough, but they ignored my question. My wife accused me of being uncooperative and unreasonable for no reason. I became frustrated and told her that she was using her parents to gang up on me. I reminded her that we had an agreement and she was refusing to stick to it, even though I never interfered with what our older boys wanted. She argued that they made the right choices and wanted our younger boys to do the same. She believed that they were missing out on the pressure and expectations that all children should experience at a young age by being on serious sports teams. Her parents supported my wife, stating that she was right and I needed to see sense and stop being selfish. I lost my temper and told my in-laws that this had nothing to do with them. I also told my wife that she was completely wrong for involving her parents and attempting to corner me. I made it clear that I was not okay with any of it. Now, they are angry at me for turning it into a fight. Am I the a-hole, Ada? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. 1. Not the idiot because of your stated reasons. I told my in-laws this had nothing to do with them and told my wife she was totally wrong for bringing her parents into this and trying to back me into a corner. 1. Not the idiot because not all kids are suited to team sports. Some actively hate and resent them. The very idea of forcing someone to play a game is abhorrent. Not all people are team players, and that's fine. I also have a theory that team sports are why so many countries are politically messed up. Everything becomes about backing the team you support, right or wrong, not about what is best for the country. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Being open for kids to do extracurriculars is good as long as it is their choice. Your wife and in-laws are wrong. If you force them into competitive sports and they don't want to, it will cause them to resent you both as parents. It is not going to make them man up. Stick to your guns and don't be bullied by your wife and her parents. They are trying to make your boys compete against each other, and that will only end badly. Sit down with your 2 younger boys and ask them what they want to do and support them in it, but don't allow them to be pushed into sports they don't want to do. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a month since my last post, and I wanted to give you an update on what's been happening. Thanks for reading. Things have been pretty tense between my wife and me since our disagreement about the kids' extracurricular activities. We've barely spoken to each other, and when we do, it's just short, necessary conversations. I've been sleeping on the couch most nights. Last week, my wife came to me with a proposal. She said that if I agreed to let our younger boys join the competitive football team, she would compromise by letting them quit after 1 season if they really hated it. I was hesitant, but I could see she was trying to meet me halfway, so I agreed. The boys started practice, and at first, things seemed to be going okay. They didn't love it, but they didn't complain too much either. But then, during a particularly rough practice, our youngest son got tackled hard and ended up breaking his arm. I rushed to the hospital to be with him, and when I got there, I found out that my wife had already been called and was on her way. When she arrived, I could see the guilt and worry written all over her face. She blamed herself for pushing the boys into football, and I could tell she felt terrible. We had a long talk that night, and for the first time in weeks, we really opened up to each other. My wife confessed that her insistence on the boys doing competitive sports stemmed from her own childhood. Her parents had always pushed her to be the best, and she felt like she had to live up to their expectations. She didn't want our boys to feel that same pressure, but she also didn't want them to miss out on the opportunities she had. I told her about how I had always felt like the odd one out in my family. My parents and siblings were all high achievers, and I often felt like I wasn't good enough. I didn't want our boys to feel that way, and I worried that pushing them too hard would make them resent us. We both realized that we had been letting our own experiences and fears dictate how we parented our kids. We agreed that we needed to trust our boys to make their own choices and support them no matter what. The next day, we sat down with all 4 of our sons and had an honest conversation. We apologized for putting so much pressure on them and told them that we would support them in whatever activities they wanted to pursue, as long as they were happy and healthy. It's been a few weeks since then, and things have been much better. Our youngest is recovering well, and our older boys have been helping out around the house more. My wife and I are communicating better, and we're both trying to be more understanding of each other's perspectives. I know we still have a lot of work to do, but I'm hopeful that we're on the right track. Parenting is never easy, but I'm learning that the most important thing is to love and support our kids unconditionally. Thanks for reading, everyone. I appreciate all of your advice and support. Am I the idiot for considering skipping visits to the grandparents who favor my unemployed brother-in-law with lavish gifts? My brother-in-law is a 28-year-old man with no job who lives in my in-laws' basement. He is obese and survives off of welfare checks from the Canadian government. He is capable of working but chooses not to. My wife, on the other hand, is 26 years old, moved out at 18, self-funded a degree, works in a good field, earning $80,000 annually, got married, and has never sought a handout from her parents or her grandparents, even though they both have the means. We spent our vacation time the last 2 years visiting her grandparents who live across the country. Recently, her grandparents, 85 years old, moved out of their house and into retirement living, and no longer had space for both of their vehicles. Her grandpa decided to gift my brother-in-law a truck with a fair value of $50,000. His justification was to help him build confidence and give him something to care for. My wife was given nothing, and they did not do anything to even out the gift. We have a trip planned to visit them in a few months, but I have no interest in going to see them. I am mad at myself for letting money ruin my perception of them, but I do not appreciate how my wife was treated. I feel they take her for granted. We always go out of our way to visit them. All of our trips are self-funded. We have never asked anything of them, while lots of her cousins have been bailed out financially. I just have an icky feeling about the whole thing. My wife got upset when I told her I wanted to do something else with our vacation time. She got really upset, and it led to an argument. She took the stance we have to enjoy our time with them while we have it. My wife and I are currently saving for our first house, paying off student loans, and saving for our first child. We still drive my very first car, which I bought 10 years ago. The situation stings, as we could have used the help, while her brother lives a free ride and gets nothing but help all the time. Am I the jerk for not wanting to see my wife's grandparents because of this? Edit #1. My wife is extremely upset about her brother being given it as well, but is choosing to keep it to herself. She cried multiple times, and my sentiment of her family not appreciating her or taking her for granted comes from her speaking those feelings. Edit #2. My brother-in-law lives with my wife's parents, not her grandparents. He never sees the grandparents. Edit #3. By not see them, I mean postpone the trip to a later date. We just saw them last week while they were here, and now the trip there is in less than 2 months. My intention is to let the situation cool a bit more for my wife and me. Edit #4. This is the second vehicle that has been given to him. The last one was given to him by his parents. My wife did not get one from her parents. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. My in-laws favor my sister-in-law like this, gifting her $500,000 and the two others nothing. So they can choose to spend their money how they wish, and we can choose to spend our time with whom we wish. We rarely see the in-laws. They aren't allowed around the kids unsupervised, and we ask them for nothing. We don't vacation with them anymore. We don't sleep over at their house. We don't even spend Christmas with them. We've also agreed that when they're old, it's the sister-in-law who has to tote them around to appointments and do all the care for them. They're no longer our problem. My family, on the other hand, gets all the visits, all the holidays, all the babysitting. If they can play favorites, we can too. Frick in-laws. Comment 2. It's genuinely really sweet that you're angry/frustrated by this on your wife's behalf, but yeah, I'd let it go. You don't know if they have plans to give her something else later on. But even if they don't, tell her that one possibility is that they see clearly how capable and together she is, and that she doesn't need help from them. Sounds like they would have been better off gifting her brother an intervention of some kind instead of a valuable car. But whatever. Grandparents gone grandparent. Now, for the update. Hey everyone. Thanks for reading my update. It's been a week since I posted about the situation with my wife's grandparents, gifting her brother a $50,000 truck while we struggle to save for our future. A lot has happened since then, and I feel like I need to share it with you all. First off, my wife and I had a long talk about the whole situation. She opened up to me about how hurt and frustrated she's been feeling, not just about the truck, but about the way her family has treated her over the years. She told me stories I'd never heard before, like how her parents always favored her brother and made excuses for his behavior, even when he dropped out of high school and refused to get a job. Meanwhile, my wife worked her butt off to put herself through college and build a successful career, and they barely acknowledged her achievements. It broke my heart to see her so upset, but I was also proud of her for finally standing up for herself. She decided to call her grandparents and tell them how she felt. It wasn't an easy conversation, but she managed to stay calm and express herself clearly. Her grandparents seemed surprised at first, but eventually they admitted that they hadn't been fair to her. They apologized and promised to make things right. A few days later, we got a call from my wife's parents. They were furious with us for causing drama and disrespecting the grandparents. They accused us of being ungrateful and selfish, and they threatened to cut us off completely if we didn't apologize and go on the trip as planned. My wife was in tears by the end of the call, and I was seething with anger. We spent the next few days trying to figure out what to do. On one hand, we didn't want to lose our relationship with my wife's family, especially her grandparents. But on the other hand, we couldn't just sweep this under the rug and pretend everything was okay. We needed to stand up for ourselves and set some boundaries. In the end, we decided to go on the trip, but with some conditions. We told my wife's parents that we would only stay for a few days, and that we expected them to treat us with respect and kindness. We also made it clear that we wouldn't tolerate any more favoritism or unfair treatment, and that we expected them to start supporting my wife the way they supported her brother. It wasn't an easy decision, but I think it was the right one. We're still working on rebuilding our relationship with my wife's family, but at least now we're doing it on our own terms. And who knows? Maybe this whole experience will be the wake-up call they needed to start appreciating my amazing wife for the incredible person she is. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening, and I'll keep you all updated if anything else happens. Am I the idiot for supporting my mom against my grandparents in a custody battle for my half-sister? My parents' marriage ended 5 years ago, when my mom found out my dad was cheating on her and got the other woman pregnant. Dad didn't want his cheating to end the marriage, so he offered not to be in the baby's life if mom would stay, or he offered to find a way for them to raise the baby together. Dad tried to involve my siblings, a 17-year-old male and a 15-year-old female, and me, an 18-year-old female, in his little drama, but we all declined. I stopped seeing Dad after that because I told the courts I wanted my mom to have custody. My siblings saw Dad for a couple of years before they could declare a lack of interest in going, and the courts agreed. During that time, Dad had moved in with the affair partner, but tried to use my siblings to reconcile with Mom. They didn't want that to happen, and Mom was furious at him for using the kids. His youngest daughter was born around that time. I never met her, but my siblings did, though they never formed a relationship with her. Dad's affair partner left, and hasn't been involved in his daughter's life since. Dad died 14 weeks ago. His daughter went to live with my paternal grandparents, whom we don't really see because they were angry at Mom for the divorce, and they felt we were too hard on Dad, who not only cheated, but also tried to use his kids to keep his marriage together. About a week after my dad's death, my paternal grandparents reached out to Mom and asked her to raise Dad's daughter as her own. My mom said no, and that should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. And it is bordering on harassment now, according to the officer and lawyer my mom spoke to. My paternal grandparents went on a character assassination of Mom and told her that if she doesn't take their granddaughter, this poor little girl will grow up with no parents and no siblings, because clearly we have no intention of being there for her. They told Mom their granddaughter should be part of mine and my siblings, family and life, and we should be part of hers. Mom said that she wasn't going to force us, and she told them it did not mean she would raise her late ex-husband's child from his affair. They called my mom selfish, heartless, evil, spawn of the devil, and insulted her in all kinds of ways. This has been going on for weeks. My mom has blocked them, but they always find another way to contact her. I reached my limit when they started publicly talking about my mom letting her children's half-siblings go into foster care and how heartless she was, even though she told everyone we wanted her with us. I confronted them and told them to frick right off and stop trying to make Mom responsible for their cheating son's kid. I said he was a terrible person, and Mom did not have to do anything for his child, and they had no right to harass her to take responsibility. They were so offended and angry and told me I had no right to be so disrespectful to them. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, but I feel so sad for your half-sister. I know you were impacted horribly by your father's selfishness, but I can't imagine the damage his actions are also causing this little girl. The grandparents need to step up. They are also damaging her by highlighting the fact that no one wants her. Comment 2. Not the idiot, and it sounds like your dad's parents needed to hear the cold, hard truth. The only devil's spawn in this situation is their own son. So guess what that makes them? If the poor child's own mother or mother's family doesn't want her either, sadly, foster care is the best option. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been a tough few months since then, and I appreciate you all being there for me. So, about 3 weeks after my confrontation with my paternal grandparents, they showed up at our house unannounced. They had my dad's daughter with them, and basically tried to force my mom to take her in. It was a huge mess, with lots of yelling and accusations flying around. My mom stood her ground, but it was really stressful for all of us. A few days later, we found out that my paternal grandparents had filed for custody of my dad's daughter, claiming that my mom was an unfit guardian. They even tried to use my outburst against her, saying that she had turned us against them and our half-sister. It was a total nightmare. The legal battle dragged on for weeks, and it took a toll on all of us. My mom was constantly stressed and worried, and my siblings and I felt like we were caught in the middle. I started to second-guess my decision to confront my grandparents, wondering if I had made things worse. During this time, we also learned more about my dad's affair partner. Apparently, she had struggled with addiction and mental health issues, which is why she had left in the first place. It made me feel a little more sympathetic towards my half-sister, knowing that she had been through so much already. Eventually, the court ruled in favor of my paternal grandparents, granting them custody of my dad's daughter. It was a huge blow to my mom, who felt like she had failed us in some way. She started to withdraw from us, spending more and more time alone in her room. I tried to talk to her, to reassure her that none of this was her fault, but she just couldn't seem to shake the guilt and shame she felt. It broke my heart to see her like that, and I wished there was more I could do to help. As for my half-sister, we still haven't met her. My paternal grandparents have made it clear that they don't want us to have any contact with her, and honestly, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet either. It's a complicated situation, and there are a lot of hurt feelings on all sides. Looking back, I wonder if I should have handled things differently with my grandparents. Maybe if I had been more patient, more understanding, we could have found a way to work things out. But at the same time, I don't regret standing up for my mom and our family. She's been through so much already, and she deserves to be treated with respect and compassion. Anyway, that's where things stand now. It's been a tough few months, but we're trying to move forward as best we can. Thank you again for all your support and kind words. It means more than you know. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!